Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC. With me are
Woof.
And Jaya.
and today our Ducktales marathon is coming to an end with the final season, season 3. We would say woohoo, but this is more like a boohoo because the show is over. And in my opinion, taken from us before its time. And this is both because I'm sad that the show didn't last a bit longer, but also because this season, while good and having some really good episodes, I think we needed one more season to give it a proper finish.
Completely agree. You can tell it's rushed towards the end because each of the triplets are supposed to have a season focusing on their character arc. First season 1 was about Dewey and the quest for him to find out what happened to Della. Season 2 is about Louis and struggling to find out his purpose, as well as start his own business and become successful. And season 3, Huey's learning to accept that he's not as smart as he wants to be.
Question mark?
Exactly. Question mark. Because we don't know what Huey's arc is supposed to be, despite the fact it's supposed to be his season.
And the thing is that the season, actually, before I go into this, Wolf, what do you think?
I'm going to make you both upset. I actually think this is a pretty good ending. Like, if I had to pick, right, getting more, I wouldn't mind more, to be clear. But if this is how they're going to end off DuckTales, the DuckTales reboot and all of that, I'm okay with that because I think it does well enough. It is a good enough send-off.
I agree that it's a good send-off, but again, it kind of feels like when you hand the previous 2 seasons focusing on a specific triplet, and then you get this one where there are hints that they are focusing on Huey and giving him his own arc and stuff, and they don't really do anything with it, and some of the elements they introduce are kind of dropped because suddenly they were given the accents, like we need to close everything up quickly without.
Well,
Hold the Wander on us. This is exactly what Disney did with Wander Over Yonder in season 2.
Oof.
Well.
And so Frank Aragonis has been through this twice. They released the best episode of Wander Over Yonder, and then Disney announced that they were canceling it. And this spurred an outcry, naturally, because that best episode, My Fair Haiti, got everyone into the show. The fact is that Disney has not learned from their mistakes. If you're going to say cancel it, say it up front.
Like, have you heard that they're releasing 2 movies that were like, which were supposed to be theatrical? They're releasing them on Disney Plus again with that stupid premium pay shit, like that you still have to pay for them even though you're paying for the Disney Plus service. So it's like, fuck you, Mickey Mouse.
Indeed.
That's all I have to say. But back on DuckTales.
You can say it, but the mouse cares not.
Yeah.
I mean, the mouse is only the face. It's the people wearing the mouse ears that you should fear.
At the end of the day, if they are having those ears, they are either some of the nicest people you can see, or they are some of the people you want to kill. But that's a different story. Anyway, so DuckTales season 3, we kind of got the general non-spoiler that's out. Wolf thinks it's a really good finale. Jaya and I think it's good, but not excellent, and could have been better. With that said, shall we go on to the episodes themselves?
Indeed, into the arc of Fowl.
And on that note, since the season ended not too long ago, spoilers are at Omega level, basically. This is really your chance to close it up. Come back after you've caught up. 3, 2, 1. Still here? Good. Everyone dies. Except Scrooge. He lives on forever.
Not wrong.
What? That's the joke. Anyway,
Definite.
Anyway, beginning with the challenge of the senior junior woodchucks. And again, we were talking about Huey and him supposedly having an alcove, realizing he's not always the smarter in the room. This episode starts at credit. It starts at kinda.
Yep.
So I'm gonna come in and say, like, it never dawned on me, right, that each season was supposed to be dedicated more to each individual triplet until you brought it up. I mean, hell, even the wiki, right, has each season
I was
listed
just
in
about to
blue,
say.
green, and
I
red.
was just about to say
And
that.
as you said that, like, I just noticed, they did that, didn't they? So, clap to the wiki for being clever there. But it didn't dawn on me that the show was doing that. So with that in mind, because without that in mind, right, I would have come here to say this first episode felt a bit weak to me. Like, compared to the other two seasons starter episodes, they felt a little bit stronger, a little bit more, like something to really get you into it and going for the rest of the season. This one felt a little bit weaker, in my opinion. But with the idea in mind that it's more focused, the entire season's more focused around Huey and him trying to, and him growing and learning as a character, I think I would still say it's a bit weaker, but not for the reasons I would have said, if you understand and get that.
Yeah. And honestly, for an episode that's supposed to start like the Huey arc, he's not the thing I remember most about this episode. Like, I remember more, Violet actually, being playful with him and kicking his ass without even trying, and kind of learning how to tease him as she does it. Or like Dewey having this relationship with the bird, and just the entire idea that they're setting up Fowl as trying to, stop Scrooge and the family from finding more treasures after they find that list. Like, Huey is not the thing I necessarily remember from this episode.
Exactly.
But this aside, it's not. I don't think it's a bad opener. It's just like, okay, cool. Like, the show is back. Let's see what you got. But on that note, this wasn't the only opener, because episode 2 they came out the same day. And shall we move on to that?
Yep.
So, Quack Pack.
Yep.
I know I got the reference. I know Jaya got the reference. Wolf, did you get the reference?
Yeah.
Thoughts on the original Quack Pack? Because you seem a bit.
I mean, I know of it, but I've never actually seen it. Quack Pack isn't something I got around to watching. It's something that I missed.
I know a lot of people
don't
like it. I know a lot of people don't like the original, but Jaya actually showed me an episode, and I'm like, why do people hate this? This is actually kind of fun.
It is. I showed HT an episode from the original series, and we both agreed it's actually really funny. The problem is that Quackpack is a bit more mean-spirited than the original Ducktales. It's basically about Donald taking in the triplets again, or raising them to when they're moody, broody teenagers, and they still get into a bunch of scrapes. And the thing is, if Gene had really brought back the actual Quackpack, I don't think Donald would have gotten normal family problems. The episode we saw was about Daisy's pet lizard being turned into Godzilla by peanut butter.
Which, honestly, I would have loved if they did that, but what
Me
can
too.
you...
But maybe they were worried that they would anger the fans by showing the actual Quackpack, and Donald would probably beat up his 1996 counterpart for being so irresponsible.
But, aside from that, this was a really cool and actually fun thing to do. Like, actually, how would DuckTales be as a sitcom? And I love the new designs, supposedly. Like, Scrooge looks like these 87 DuckTales counterpart. But,
right.
the triplets outfits and how everyone was updated, and the fact that because this is like Donald's perfect family. He has Don Cheadle's voice again, which was a nice surprise. And also just I also love like Goofy being like the dumb neighbor, a sitcom neighbor for no reason. It's just a fun episode. It's a really fun episode.
Is, and you can tell it's specifically a Disney sitcom rather than, say, The Big Bang Theory. Sorry to everyone. Or Malcolm in the Middle. Or The Good Place. Like, it would be interesting if Ducktales ever did a Good Place homage, because I think HC and I would have a lot of fun with it. But it's basically...
Who said they didn't? 2 of the cast members are in this show, so...
Yeah, but The Good Place doesn't have a laugh track, and the humor is a lot more subtle in the sense.
Yeah.
That you...
But I think it's kind of... I like it that it's not subtle in this, because it's part of the joke. You're supposed to be like, oh my god, did they really do that? Yeah, of course they did, because that's the intention. They want you to groan. They want you to feel that it's cheesy. But I also like Huey suddenly realizing that something is not right, and the way he's saying this, like did you notice there's no fourth wall? And then Scrooge's like, of course there's a fourth wall. So why aren't you looking at it? And then the characters are like slowly turning their heads, looking at it. It's like, this is weird. And like that there's like a drink commercial for no reason in the middle, and actually, wait, wasn't there someone drinking something, and like it exploded or something? And when you see him in a transition, how did I get here? Why am I doing this? And it's just I like it. As someone who's a fan of sitcoms, it was fun seeing this. Also,
but in terms
sorry, Wolf, I just want to say one thing. It's funny how this was basically WandaVision a whole year before WandaVision was a thing. Kudos, Ducktales.
And a lot less angsty. It's a lot less angsty than WandaVision.
Yeah. So, Wolf, you want to say sorry?
I was just going to say, I thought it was very clever and interesting of them to use, like the audience is actually humans, right? This is the only time you ever see humans in DuckTales, which was actually very clever of them to do for this in particular. And also, considering you mentioned that this was released the same time as the first episode, Challenge of the Senior Junior Woodchucks, I honestly think this is a better first episode for Huey. Like, this kind of shows a bit more of him and his character, and him kind of learning and trying to figure things out.
Yeah. But talking more about this, I really enjoyed how they implemented Goofy into this episode. Like, aside of the fact that it's obviously Bill Farmer doing the voice again, but I like how when he shows up, he's like, I just came in to borrow some ketchup, and instead of taking the bottle, he just takes he squints a bit of ketchup into his pocket. Like, that's gonna help you in any way. But then he also actually tells Donald, every family has their own kind of normal, just because it's not someone else's normal doesn't mean it can be your normal. And it's actually a very heartfelt thing to teach people that just because you're not like anyone else doesn't mean it's not good or not a good family bonding experience. And then, of course, when it turns out he was actually with the family while they were fighting these giant scorpions, and he just happened to be there for no reason. I love it.
Yeah, that was just a funny little, like, you can't fake a guest star appearance. Yeah, that was actually very clever and funny too. Again, like, that's just...
Indeed.
There's a lot of really good, funny jokes throughout the season.
Indeed.
That is good.
I do like how Gene interpreted Donald's wish, and he wasn't trying to be a typical genie screwing him over. And Donald didn't even know he was making a wish. His butt just happened to be rubbing the lamp while he was in a troubled fetal position, saying, why can't we have normal family problems? And Donald points out, I make that wish 5 times a day. How was I supposed to know it would come true this time? And it's both really funny and really sad. Because And Gene just decided to do a 90s sitcom, but when Louis criticizes the writing, he goes, everyone's a critic.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
like there's a whole lot of stuff to unpack. But it is
Also,
interesting.
also another thing that they referenced Quackpack, obviously they referenced Goof Troop as well, but I didn't expect them to actually reference the Ducktales movie because the Gene is basically from that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes, only Gene is a child in that.
Yeah,
And he's a little more on the ball than this Gene.
Mhm.
A little.
Just a
But
little,
he
a pinch, if you will. And so, two things about this episode, like personal things to me. That one, my mother is a really big Donald Duck fan. Like she just loves the way he talks. The voice no one understands. She likes it a lot. And I just showed her that episode, and she's waiting for Donald to talk. And when he starts talking
no.
normally, and when suddenly, it's Don Cheadle's voice, her whole expression changed. It's like, what is going on here? And speaking of voice acting, I can't believe I went for 2 seasons without mentioning it, 2 episodes about this show without mentioning it. But now, the show gives me no choice. We have to mention it. I have to do it because it's my thing. The Jin is voiced by Jaleel White. So officially, we don't have one Sonic voice actor in this show because of Ben Schwartz. We have 2. So that's what I call a good episode. Give me 2 good Sonics. I'm happy. That is all.
Mm-hmm.
I would have dropped my mic, but the mic is my phone, so I can't do that. But And anything else about this episode?
There's a lot. It's the fact is that it ends up being 2 things that snap Donald out of the idea that this is what he wants, that he would rather that the big problem be that no one is ready for a family photo. It's first that Goofy gives a quite poignant talk about how being part of a family means that things are never going to go according to plan.
Yeah.
And we find out Max is back. And Max is Goofy's son, and they have a good relationship about how Max saved his life when Goofy fell off of a theme park ride.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
even
implied by the pictures, though, we don't actually see Max. Like
Yeah.
he's not a physical character. But,
And the other thing is Donald's assuming they're having fun trying to break the reality. But then he sees the humans are actually attacking his family, and he snaps back to being Donald, which leads to his family cheering. And it just felt very sweet. The other thing is that Danny Pudi, his other character in Community that he's best known for, is a meta guy on the show. He often comments, uses movie references and television to cope with what they're talking about, and he expressly mentions how a new cast member comes and joins them in season 6. And now he's worried that this will mess up the dynamics of the relationship. And fun fact, Della Duck is actually that character, Paget Brewster, who's the new character in season 6 that Danny Pudi interacts with, and she becomes almost motherly towards him and able to talk on his wavelength. So
they had to
it's
plan
kind
this. They had to plan this.
They probably planned this because they wanted Huey to have a chance to be the meta guy, the one who realizes things are not right when his Junior Woodchuck guidebook is blank. So it does make me wish they had an episode with the Community cast making a cameo, but thanks for not giving us season 4, because I would have paid money to have Donald Glover do a quick role with Danny Pudi.
Maybe in the Duckwing Duck reboot, who knows? But
one can hope.
So moving on to episode 3, Double O Duck in You Only Crash Twice. Good name reference, by the way. Wolf, we basically talked all about Quackpack a lot. You want to take on this one?
Oh boy. So this one is basically, we see, Fowl's headquarters is located in Funzo's, because Scrooge would never go to a place like that, right? And all of a sudden Scrooge is there, so this one is basically Launchpad and Huey believe they are in a game when they're actually being... Oh, Dewey, sorry, I said Huey. Dumb me. Yeah, Dewey. Believe they're in a game when they're actually being attacked by Steelbeak, an old character from
Is
the DuckTales
Darkwing Duck.
comics.
Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, Darkwing Duck. That's what it is. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. This one's a lot of fun because we get to see Launchpad be super smart dude in this one and super badass.
Mhm. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. I also really enjoyed the ending specifically, where Dewey actually tells Launchpad, "You're my best friend, no matter if you're smart or dumb. I love you either way." That's really sweet. And also, fun fact: the concept for Darkwing Duck started as Double O Duck starring Launchpad as a secret agent. So and so having Steelbeak here and the name Double O Duck and stuff, that's a really, like, it's not just a James Bond reference, it's also a very obscure behind the scenes reference. So kudos, writers. I
Indeed.
salute you.
Clap, clap.
And I also
Clap, clap.
and I also like how Scrooge apparently gets addicted to Funzos. Like this old man starting to actually having fun with all the kid games.
I love the joke where he's trying to become a ticket billionaire, and Webby tells him, the tickets expire after the day, and someone's getting ready to say they don't. No, that one got me to laugh. Like it was the person behind the counter, I believe, and Webby just gives them a stare, like if you say it, I'll kill you. Like I
Yeah,
love that. That was great.
Yeah,
me too.
that's great. Not a lot to say, but just a good episode, a good fun episode.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. Like it was fun seeing a different side to Launchpad, and then seeing him desperately trying to let everyone know about Fowl, and just being unable to do so because he can't remember. And I
Yeah.
love kind of seeing like the suave, smart double agent, in his head, like, oh, I give up. I'm gonna go soak in a tub. Again,
Yeah.
a lot of good humor
Yeah.
from this one.
Yeah, of course, Smart Launchpad, go figure. You can't type it all down before sending it off. But it does come back. It's actually interesting that we find out how this plays out later.
Yeah.
Always good. So moving on to episode 4, The Lost Harp of Nirvana. This one is an interesting one, but I want to mention first and foremost that harp is amazing, and I love it. Like talk
Yes.
about a good lie detector, and the reason I love it so much is that whenever you say something that's true, it always go correct. And my real life best friend actually does that sometimes. Like she'll just if you say something, she'll just do like a little belting of the world, like correct. So it reminded me of her. Bonus points for that. But it was also
Aww.
and so this was fun. But also we are getting a few hints that Bickley might be hiding something from Webby.
Yep. Which is an interesting wrinkle because she's a spy. Or rather, as she put in Quackback, is I'm not a spy really my catchphrase?
Yeah.
But the fact that there might be something more to this.
But it's also like, because we know she's a spy, but we never really know what happened to why Webby is under her care at Scrooge's mansion. She don't really tell her about her parents or anything. So it's interesting to like kind of give a word here that maybe not everything she's telling her is true. She might be hiding something. And speaking of which, though, I think it is a bit too early to do that, because by the time this happens in the finale, I kind of forgot about it. But still,
well, I mean, to be fair, right? Like the lie they pass off that Beakley was telling Webby was that she was just telling her lies to protect her. Like, oh, Webby's too optimistic. She's got this very optimistic view of the world, and I don't want to ruin that for her. And that was kind of the lie she was telling Webby. They briefly hint that there might be other stuff that she's not told Webby after after Beakley says she's being honest with Webby, but it's like very brief and it's very like, you know, like, oh, there's something else, but no one knows what it is, right?
Yep. Yep.
But then, like I said, then like you say, it's never mentioned again throughout the rest of the season until close to the finale. Which,
But I do like though that when Louis is talking to Webby about it, about when she is depressed, it feels like he actually learned something from his arc in the previous season. That like he's projecting his own experiences onto her, and he actually helps. So I like that. It felt like he learned something. Good on you, Louis. Good on you.
Indeed. Also, hippie mermaids. Is it safe and warm? I wonder if Voltron exists in this universe. And Louis saw that episode.
Who knows?
Indeed.
But yeah, I like the hippie mermaids. It was fun.
It was.
So moving on to Louis 11.
Okay, the episode where we learn do not let Donald sing.
Unless you're Daisy. Daisy likes it.
Speaking of Daisy, this is our first time to see Daisy Duck.
Yeah.
In this continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's not in the original Ducktales though. Not that I remember.
No, she is in Quack Pack though, and she's a major character as Donald's girlfriend, but also quite capable and competent on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the episode that HC and I saw where her pet turns into Godzilla, she actually takes it quite well that the boys babysitting her lizard led to him becoming a Godzilla, because Knuckles saves her and Donald from a runaway plane, and she's like, this isn't the weirdest thing that I've had to go through, and she takes it quite well.
Yeah, good on her for that. But in here, I like how, obviously when you're introducing Daisy into this, everyone knows Donald and Daisy are like that Disney couple after Mickey and Minnie. So and they also seem to like hint on it when Donald asks Louis like who's that, and he tells him this is Daisy Duck. She's and Donald is like looking at her, and there's this music, and then it's just whatever. It's a simple gag, but I like it. And
Indeed.
Then Lord and behold, Daisy isn't a bitch in this in this version.
Just putting it out there.
Well, she is in a lot of modern Disney stuff. She's kind of a bitch. Specifically in Kingdom Hearts, I remember her being not as much, but still. But
it's a balance. In House of Mouse, there are a few shorts where she causes Minnie Mouse a lot of trouble with either her selfishness or obliviousness.
Yeah, and wasn't there like an CG ice skating short where she's trying to sabotage Minnie or something?
That one I don't remember, but I do
remember watching something like this on YouTube and like, damn. But in here, I really liked her, and they actually got me to care about her and Donald's relationship. Like, it's not just, they didn't actually do it just because we need to fill a quota. It felt real. It felt like they actually have a connection, and the fact that she is able to understand him just fine without sounding like War Machine, that was actually kind of cute. Good on you, show.
Indeed. But there was actually an old Disney short where Donald received a tap to the head and became a famous singer, but this made Daisy miserable because with all the singing, he had no time for her. And she goes to see a therapist about it, and the therapist says, isn't it better that Donald benefits the world rather than benefiting you? And she's like, I want him to benefit me. And she whacks him on the head again to get back his trademark scratchy voice. So this could be what this is also referencing.
Maybe. But that aside, I love Louis' plan like that. They're basically doing it's obviously a parody of Ocean 11.
Mm-hmm.
But their heist is basically not really still something, but just get this band that nobody heard of to play in this event. So I like how kind of what's the word? How small it is, but how seriously Louis plans it out.
Well, I enjoyed that he has this entire elaborate plan. He goes up to talk to like the trendsetter Emma Galore, who they're trying to impress and everything, and she immediately tells him, "Really, is this your plan? To be unoriginal like all the others? Do you not have anything new?" Like she knew instantly what he was trying to do. Gave
Yeah.
just zero shits given about it. Did not care, and just instantly told him off. And Louis just like, well, crap, what do I do now? And then it's Dewey's time to shine, right? A little bit, and he kind of takes over from there because he knows what to do. And I love how like he starts showing off with his terrible yo-yo tricks, and everybody's just like, wow, that's so terrible, but yet so mesmerizing.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those, hey, we're referencing pop culture with Instagram and stuff like that, and it's actually quite funny. Generally when they do that, it's with Mark Beeks, and it's not as funny because it's too real.
Yeah. Speaking of Mark, well, we can kind of see we also see where he might have gotten some of his issues about being a worse Louis, because Louis at least has his family to reel him back when he goes too far. Mark has his parents, who are obviously not a good influence on him.
Suddenly, it all makes sense.
I will say, like, speaking of Daisy, right? Yeah, I agree. I really liked her in this one. I think it's a nice. I think this is probably the best Daisy, quote unquote, that I've seen, or that I feel like I've seen out of the Daisies I have seen, because it is a Daisy who knows how and can be very nice and considerate, but also is kind of can get angry, can show that anger and that meaner side to herself, and can be a little bit selfish too when she wants to be. Like again, I agree. I really enjoyed this version of Daisy Duck a lot.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So moving on to episode 6, Astro Boyd, and obvious reference to Astro Boy. They didn't even try to hide it. And I also like how there's a character named Inspector Tezuka, which is obviously a reference to Osamu Tezuka, Astro Boy's creator and basically the father of manga and anime as we know it. So you know what? Good on you for actually not just referencing something for the sake of referencing something. There's actual, respect for what you're representing. So I like it. So thoughts?
This was fun.
It was. And I think about the fact that they reference Astro Boy, but in a different direction. Because most versions of Astro Boy question, is Astro capable? Does Astro have a soul? Can robots have souls? And what does that mean since he was made to be a copy? Here, fortunately, there's no boy for Boy to replicate. And we find out what made Gyro the crusty scientist he is today.
That it is kind of similar in the fact that there's like a sentence that's ashamed of his that wants no connection to his creation, even though his creation is kind of a breakthrough. But there is a question of maybe it's too dangerous. Maybe it can cause more harm than good. And Huey is actually the one defending Boyd to that he is an actual kid and we just need to teach him how to do things the right way.
Agreed.
I like Jaya brought up learning more about Gyro in this, and I love the fact that they used Gyro's old design to kind of show when he was more optimistic and more naive, and that was him being an intern, right? And and it's after Boyd and after working with the doctor he worked with here. Who was it? I'm trying to look for the name real quick.
Dr. Akita?
Yeah, Akita, that's who it was, yeah. After working with him and being his intern and everything that went wrong there and moving to work with Scrooge McDuck, that's when he became, as Jaya said, the more curmudgeonly, kind of very much somewhat mean-spirited guy he become that we know him in this DuckTales. I think that was very clever of him to use him that way.
Yeah, and I also like it. Kind of a nice moment for Fenton, seeing that his boss started in the exact same position he did.
Yeah,
And
that's another thing, right? Like this is meant to be a Huey episode, but it feels way more like a Fenton and Jaya episode than it does Huey episode. Even Boyd, I feel, gets more than Huey does.
yeah, but
Ish.
he plays a bit, but he plays a good enough role in it regardless, which I
But
like.
going back to the whole like character
Yeah,
arc over the season, right? I don't think this adds anything to that. It don't take
true, but
away
at the
anything,
same
but it doesn't really
time,
add anything.
true, but at the same time, even with the previous seasons, they didn't really focus on that arc with each and every episode.
Oh no, that's fair.
So
That's completely fair.
I like this is not something I will knock the episode on its own for. It's
sure,
something
sure.
that the entire season kind of has a problem with, but
Mhm.
but moving on to the Rumble for Ragnarok.
Yep.
I have to
Our
admit,
wrestling episode.
I didn't expect them to do a wrestling episode for one, and two, I didn't expect Scrooge to just walk into Valhalla to wrestle with the Northern mythology. I mean,
Okay.
someone had to think this up, and
It's clever. It's clever though.
Yeah, it's clever, but at the same time, what did you do in that writing room, and can I have some? But but also I like how Scrooge basically kicks ass until he hurts his back, and Louis is actually trying to make money off of it. And it's
Of course.
and like on the one hand, of course, on the other hand, dude, that's your uncle.
Yeah.
There's a good knowing Scrooge, he probably made some sort of a deal that would allow him to change the will the minute he dies. So Louis is actually risking not earning shit from Scrooge's fortune. Just putting it
Yeah.
out there. But yeah, I think it's a fun episode. Doesn't really contribute to anything. It's obviously filler, but it's okay. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, indeed. Plus, I mean, so we know the Greek gods exist and the Norse gods exist. And in this case, Jormungandr or Joe, I guess we can keep it so short,
Yeah.
apparently is a lot friendlier and treated better than he is in traditional Norse mythology. Because they're basically allied, and Jormungandr enjoys wrestling.
Speaking of which, though, I just want to say, since we now know that Scrooge is, having a wrestling competition with the Norse gods every once in a while, and he also has some sort of a thing with the Greek gods. Disney, Sony, get together, get me that Scrooge Mcduck and God of War crossover. I'm waiting. I'm throwing money on the screen. Give it to me. I'm ready. Just saying.
Or if they did a WandaVision as a sitcom and they did this as well, maybe it would be a good idea to have Loki reacting to his wrestler or to his son's wrestler persona, because Jormungandr is Loki's son. I think it would be funny. Tom Hiddleston reacting to that.
Yeah. Either way, give it to me. I'm giving you my credit card, and you do whatever the hell you want with it. Just please.
The meme. Shut up and take my money.
No, it's better than that. It's not just my money; it's my entire bank account.
Oh boy,
they have access to. But as fun as that sounds, we do need to move on. So...
I will say for Rumble for Ragnarok, right? It's clever because they use the fact that Scrooge is like this amazing person, right? And Jormungandr's supposed to be evil in Norse mythology, and he's supposed to be the one who kind of destroys the world and everything like that, right? And because Scrooge is so amazing and always stops him, right? Jormungandr's actually the good guy, quote unquote, even though he's really not the good guy. Again, it's clever. It's a very clever and just fun episode.
That is true. So, the Phantom of the Sorceress. So, Lena's back, and
yep.
This is a really good episode for her, especially because she basically reaches whatever you want to call it. She, you could call it Super Lena or Super Saiyan 4 or whatever your definition of powerful being is, she reaches that.
Yep. Indeed. She becomes a magical girl, basically, and I'm not complaining.
No.
But it is interesting that she goes from her punk outfit, which we've seen, to this one. And so it brings up the question of how much of that was Magica's influence and how much of it was hers.
Or maybe it was just, the moody teen phase, which she grew out of. You may never know. But I like this new design, and I like how they actually show her training and trying to get her to actually step into her full potential. And I felt like she reached that, without it being really rushed or having a BS explanation. She legit got it. She legit earned it. So I like it.
Yeah. Indeed. And it is interesting how it sets up stuff in a later episode. Because you would think it's a bad thing that Magica's powers are back, which means she can go back to seeking revenge over Scrooge and all that. Then we actually see, oh, okay, so this is why they let this happen.
Yeah.
It makes more sense now. And I wonder if the implication is that Scrooge would rather if his opponents had a fair chance, if his sworn enemies weren't just beaten to the ground, because it takes the fun out for him of facing them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Scrooge is kind of one of those people. It's like, where's the fun in just doing
in home?
In just beating regular people in their own game. I want to be the greatest, even if they're witches. So, good episode. I like it. Good resolution for Lena and her entire arc throughout the show. And Gladstone having no luck is funny.
Indeed, that was really funny. And the fact that Donald's bad luck is removed, confirming the universe really does hate him that much. So he actually gets somewhat of a break for this episode.
Yeah.
While Gladstone suffers a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, as it should be. I am not biased. Anyway, in the next episode, they put a moonlander on the Earth, which, by the way, I love this episode's name out of context. Like, it sounds like something someone would write as a Facebook status or a tweet, like commenting to something on the news, like, they put a moonlander on the Earth. I like it. Like, as a completely non-context name, it works wonderfully. But with that said, we have an episode focusing on Penumbra and her attempts at living on Earth. I enjoyed it.
Indeed. It's also good to see the consequences of the moon invasion, because the fact that the moonlanders invaded Earth while being deceived, they kind of acknowledge, yeah, but you still did try to do a global invasion, so there are going to be consequences. Though in this case, the consequences are more assimilation rather than facing an international investigation.
Yeah. Wolf, what do you think?
This is a good episode. The only issue I think I had with it is, and this kind of goes back to a lot of the season, this season especially, because we have Della and Donald, and we don't use them a lot in this season, especially Della. And I think I personally would have enjoyed getting to see more of Della and her trying to be a mom to the boys.
Especially because they put her in the opening in this season, so
they
it's
did.
like.
But I mean, it's not a big deal, right? Like the focus of Ducktales has always been on the triplets and Scrooge, right? Not as much anyone else. Like everyone else is kind of background at that point. Even Donald, like this isn't his show, which that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen a bit more of Della trying to be around and be a bit more of a mom to the boys and be a bit more involved, since we've not had as much time with her. So I think it would have been interesting and enjoyable to see Della a bit more involved with her best friend and trying to get her to, enjoy the Earth more since it is her best friend, supposedly. But it's not a big deal. It's still a very fun episode. Like, I'm being very nitpicky when I bring that up, right? Because, again, I think Penumbra has a good back and forth with Webby.
Also, Glumgold is in this episode, and he's always fun.
Yes, this is true.
Indeed. The fact that he hires one of the Moonlanders as his personal assistant, and it becomes the Glumgold version of the Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah. I never really thought about that, but that's a good that's a good connection. Next episode.
Yep, that would be.
Okay, that will be that Reckoning, which is our Halloween episode. So always fun seeing Halloween episodes in animation. This one I kind of like that we do get some Della and Donald siblinghood when they're trying to have a fun night with Lunchpad, but he just thinks that on Halloween there's a curse that everyone is just dead or something, and he's trying to fend everyone off.
He thinks on Halloween that he brought about all of the monsters walking around just because he went into a house and picked up a piece of candy. I love Launchpad.
Indeed. Poor guy.
Our adorable pure bean.
And it's interesting because in the cartoon short with Witch Hazel, Donald is the one pulling tricks on anyone who comes to his door because he doesn't want to give out candy. So the triplets allied with Witch Hazel to get some candy from him. Here, Donald's actually the responsible one.
And it's Della who doesn't want to give out any candy.
Yeah.
I do like how of 2017 Donald is basically the reasonable parent here.
Yeah, Donald Duck of all people.
Well, considering what he went through these past 10 years, yeah, he would be responsible. It also helps him manage his anger, as we established. But I also like the kids going on to that haunted house, and actually for some reason it is actually haunted, but maybe not. And it's a good Halloween episode. But again, I think they tried doing something with Huey, that like Louis is kinda objecting to his plan, but at the end of the day, like Huey actually is like, you know what, we can still do something with this holiday, and and of course he just decides to open Scrooge's mansion for the people and give out free candy, which Scrooge isn't happy with. But again, doesn't really connect to his supposed arc that he was supposed to have. Maybe, I'm not sure. But
yeah, you could tell this was a rush job. And overall for the season, the episodes are great.
Yeah, it's the thing that connects them all together that feels
I think
rushed.
Right, a lot of this season is more about telling a lot of the other characters' arcs than it is Huey's, which is a bit of a disappointment, right? Considering it's meant to be Huey's arc, because Louie and Dewey already had theirs. But a lot of the season is spent kind of finishing up and telling telling and finishing up other characters that we've seen's arc. And again, that's probably because they knew, like, hey, this is the last season, so we need to try and finish up as much as we can. And that's why, unfortunately, Huey got put a bit more on a back seat.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So moving along to the Forbidden Fountain of the Forever Glades. Fun fact about this one: we established that Huey is Jaya's favorite, and there's a line in this episode. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Hard to say, but you can tell us which one it is.
Basically, he's making fun of the Florida heat wave, which is fun because Jaya is from Florida, so I'm hearing this and it's like, huh. What are the chances they knew? What are the chances? But
I mean, high chances considering we're known for being super hot, especially in the summer.
Mhm. But okay, aside from that one line, I think that I really enjoyed this concept just because of how actually kind of brutal it is to just get a bunch of supposedly college kids to have have a vacation in your pool, which where the water actually drains their youth away and making them all old and grumpy and stuff. And it's kind of funny, but when you really think of the repercussions, that's dark. That's psychotic.
It's very dark.
It's
Yeah, I
a
mean,
unique version of the
it'll
Fountain of Youth too.
Yeah, exactly.
mind if it were the people who are coming down here to party over spring break. I'd probably
Mm.
just put up a sign putting "Don't swim in the pool,"
Mhm.
because we know how many people are gonna listen to that.
I mean, if they do it at that point, you tried to stop them. It's their fault. Enjoy the free youth.
The COVID.
Yeah, I also like that somehow after he drinks those water, Dewey just becomes the older brother. Like it, I like how just having a physical change in body is officially makes you the older brother. Like it's totally not how this works, but I like the concept as a joke.
As an older brother,
And
that's totally how it works.
Yep.
rub it in my only child face, but I'll take your word for it. Maybe, not sure.
I'm also a younger brother though too, so
Yeah, I am a middle child, but considered one of the babies in the family.
middle children unite.
Again, rub it in my only child face, but well, that's a story for another day. But we do get a fun adventure with a young Scrooge and Goldie and an old cranky Webby. That was
that was fun.
hilarious. That was
Yep.
to just see this little thing having back problems and everything. And this kind of ends the Scrooge and Goldie plotline. They ended on a good note, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, you do hope that one day Goldie will come around.
Mhm. But I think out of all the episodes, this is the one where it seems like the most apparent that it will happen one day.
And we know Scrooge is gonna live forever, and Goldie's gonna live forever.
Yeah. So one day when the world is destroyed, they will be the only two left, and they may repopulate the world or something. I don't know. They'll find a thing to do.
Probably.
Someone write that fan fiction. But anything else about this episode? Or
No.
the way you said that, no, I think you're just excited for the next episode as I am, which is why.
Well, of course.
So, without further ado, let's get dangerous. That was my best impression.
Indeed.
So, since Jaya and I are excited for this episode, Wolf, what did you think? Let's start with
This
you.
was fun. This was extremely fun. I like a full, essentially Darkwing Duck episode. I'm here for it. I loved this. This was great.
And also, considering the Disney Plus reboot was announced after this episode aired, they just have to connect that show to this. Like, you would be an idiot to not do it. Come on.
They better. They've got to do it because this is basically a pilot for a Darkwing Duck episode.
That's what everyone said. That's what everyone said. This is a backdoor pilot to a new Darkwing Duck show, and it's like Wolf said, I'm all for it. I'm sorry. I want this.
I mean,
give it to us.
Not connecting it at this point would be a mistake on their part, I feel, because it's such good setup. Like, they've been set up so good. Like, Ducktales has set up the Darkwing Duck reboot extremely well. To not use that setup would just be, in my opinion, very foolish.
Yeah. So,
the cast.
Speaking about the episode itself, one of the things I like is that Scrooge is basically traveling to Sut Carnard to meet with Bulba, who is collaborating with him on a project, while Dewey and Latchband just want to visit Drake, who's located there. He's doing superhero stuff in that city, supposedly. And I like how they're kind of hinting, and I'm like, our friend really knows how to get dangerous, and Louis is like, so your friend is Darkwing Duck, and they're like, what? No way. And then they're both like, yeah, and both of them are like, yeah, we kept that secret. Like,
It's okay. I mean, Gizmo Duck told everyone in his neighborhood who he was. So,
which, speaking of which, I kind of like it that he doesn't tell Darkwing that he is Gizmo Duck. So it's like Drake is like,
It's
you
not
know what,
like-
the Fenton guy helped me. He actually really hated that hack Gizmo Duck. Like he legit believes they are not the same person.
He desperately tries to, though.
he assumes that. Well, he believes that Fenton is Gizmo Duck's intern. So, which makes it to be really funny because Drake Mallard is a lot nicer than his 1990s counterpart, and that's because Jim Starling absorbed much of the egotism the original Darkwing had, and obviously Drake is still egotistical, but he's not unreasonable.
Someone actually, I don't remember who said it, but someone said like that in the original show it was Darkwing Duck learning how to become Drake Mallard, and in this continuity it's Drake Mallard learning how to become Darkwing Duck, and I would agree with that.
Because the thing is that because when you have Tahani Al-Jamil as your computer, you're guaranteed to find out that Saint Canard has no crimes because Allison, Tom Gold's former CEO, decided that working for him wasn't worth it, and so she decided to run for office and become mayor of Saint Canard, which good for her. You gotta get out of a bad business situation and figure out what you want, and she's good at it. And she actually respects Darkwing. She gives him a key to the city and calls for help when things go off the rails. So good on her.
Yeah, but I just want to mention first of all that you totally called the actress. You call her Tahani Jamal, which so you called her by her true last name, but her character name from The Good Place. I love it. Somebody actually, but I really like her performance. Like you can tell it's her as someone who knows who she is. You can tell it's her even though they're doing something to her voice to sound more computery. But I like her in that role. I like her as a sassy computer that just tells you off when you're having a nervous breakdown or stuff. Like when Drake just decides that they're doing it and she's like, well, that's not inspiring.
Indeed.
I'm sorry, who's the extra smart computer? All right, it's me, the big computer. No problem.
Aww.
I like it.
It's a lot like Tony talking with Jarvis, but they have their own spin on it. And the casting, speaking of casting, we've got some pretty good stuff. We have James Monroe Engelhardt, best known for playing the genie on Broadway's Aladdin, playing Taras Bulba.
He's also Lance in the Tangled show, and I cannot unsee it now.
And he was also in Hamilton as Lafayette and Thomas Jefferson after Daveed Diggs left the show.
Oh boy! How come we needed Gizmo Duck to fight, and then come on, it was right.
Well, maybe
there.
in the Darkwing spinoff.
Maybe it was right there. Like actually, I remember this was the first episode of the show where Jaya and I sat together as a blind, and there was a point where Drake is talking to Fenton on the phone, and it's around the same time where Launchpad tells Gosling that Drake is actually trying really hard to get her grandfather back, and he doesn't accept the option of giving up, and I just started. No one knows no one else was in the room where it happened. The room where it happened. It was basically the same thing. It's right there, people, right there. Why did I want to do anything with that? But oh well. I'll live.
Indeed. And speaking of casting, we have Stephanie Beatriz as Goslin, because sadly, Christine Cavendish, who voiced Goslin in Dexter's Laboratory, passed away a few years ago. And so they got Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine to voice Goslin. And
With
Stephanie and Beatrice generally make their characters very snarky and a
and
bit broody.
she does a bit here too, but you can tell it's snarky with a purpose. Like there is a tragedy element to her with a grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And here's the thing, because Gosalyn in the show, in the original Darkwing, was known for having good spirit, and she was cheerful despite her circumstances. That she was an orphan who got kidnapped and held hostage, and she thought she saw Darkwing die after bonding with him. But yet she's just a ball of sunshine throughout the whole show, despite the fact she's gone through a lot of trauma. Here, not so much.
yeah.
Gosalyn
Mm.
comes to Darkwing after breaking into his hideout, and she reveals that Taurus Bulba didn't invent the machine that he was demonstrating to Scrooge. He actually stole it from her grandfather, who disappeared after going to warn Bulba that the machine was unstable.
Yes.
And she says she knows he did something to Grandpa Waddlemeyer, but she doesn't know what. And she wants Darkwing's help to find her grandfather. And while Darkwing demurs because Gosalyn did kick him in the face earlier and broke into his hideout, Launchpad convinces him to at least investigate to see what might have happened to Grandpa Waddlemeyer. They find out that she's telling the truth and that
By the
Bulba
way,
did something to him.
I love also though that when they do investigate and they actually get into a fight with Bulba, Darkwing actually gets a win, you know, because he's a clumsy superhero. He doesn't fight crime much, but when he actually gets a legit win for himself, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's go Darkwing.
Indeed, go Darkwing.
And then I also like how it kind of going to the climax. There's this thing where Gosalyn actually learns to appreciate that both Drake and Launchpad are both nerds basically, and they're using that to their advantage when they're taking on the villains, which came to life from the TV show. And I also like when Drake comes to fight them, and they're like, he's just standing there. Doesn't he usually do the speech or something? Or they're like so used to how he is in the show, and then it's like, huh, what is going on here? And speaking of which, the villains from the show actually got a good amount of screen time. It is fun seeing the new Darkwing take on them. And
agreed.
And I'm still not forgiving you, Jaya, for that comic panel with Quackerjack. It haunted me throughout the whole thing.
Well, to be fair, I didn't create it. And it may not even be canon anymore.
Yeah, whoever knows what we're talking about, you know. But speaking of references to the original Darkwing Duck, I like how they actually reference an episode where they say "just us, Justice Ducks." It is an actual episode from the show, and my biggest surprise, they reference Bonkers of all things.
Yep, Bonkers is a cop in St. Canard.
Yeah.
Which, okay.
Like, sure.
Though it also begs the question, does Lucky exist in this universe, son?
Supposedly. Who knows anymore? Because, actually, we forgot to talk about this in the Double O Duck episode. We actually saw Chip and Dale and the Rescue Rangers.
That is right, yes.
Yep. But without the earworm of their theme song. Fortunately or unfortunately.
Oh man, I can already see a lot of people who like just commented on this as soon as we skipped it, and then we just mentioned it. It's like, haha, listen to the entire thing. But yeah, so overall, really good episode. Really enjoyed it, and also while it's obviously a pilot for a Darkwing Duck reboot, it does continue the Ducktales storyline with now Scrooge and the Ducks knowing that Fowl is actually after them, and
specifically they know that Bradford is revealed here too, and I love how Heron comes to pick him up, and it's in a Fowl helicopter, and he just looks at the Fowl on the side of it, and he just and she's like, "What? Would you rather we travel in an unmarked helicopter?" And he's like, "Yes, very much so."
Indeed. I also like that Huey's onto Bradford for a number of reasons. He notes that Bradford usually stays at the money bin office, far away from where all of the eccentric employees might be. But he's come out. But he also hears Heron calling Bradford repeatedly. When Bradford lies to his communicator is medicine, Huey tells him, well, shouldn't you swallow it then? And kind of, there's an imposter in the house. Or rather, someone is very sus.
Yeah, I was just about to say, someone is very sus. But, so, I think we got enough dangerous. Let's move on to...
There is one thing. This episode deconstructs someone being tossed into another dimension. Because in 1990s, you'd see that in anime dubs, Yu-Gi-Oh! Sending him to the Shadow Realm. Here, it's established it might as well be someone who's dead. Because Goslin, Grandpa Watermeyer is somewhere, but we don't know where Taurus tossed him. And yet, in the end, she has to shoot the machine, Ramrod, to save reality. And it basically means she's saying goodbye to her grandfather forever, which is showing, actually, no, this would be terrible if someone tossed into another universe, because you'd never see them again. And it's like, my heart.
Yeah, that was kind of hurtful, but I also like that Drake doesn't necessarily adopt her yet, he just agrees to make her his partner, but he might as well have adopted her, or maybe they're keeping it for the actual show, who knows. We'll see. But moving on to the next one is Escape from the Impossibility. I really like this one. I like how we kind of have again kind of a heist movie episode, and that it's basically centered around the fact of Scrooge and the family needing to beat their own minds, and they need to beat themselves in their own game, which I like.
It was fun. Yeah, I loved the different group dynamics, right? I love that it was Louis, Della, and Scrooge, and I love that it was Beakley, Webby, and the boys, and Donald, right? And I love the fact that it was Donald who was actually, again, once more, the reasonable one who talks down Beakley from being overly protective and going too far and trying to teach the boys and Webby how to defend themselves against Fowl, right? I love that, it was Beakley who's had all this past with Fowl and knows how dangerous they can be, who went overboard in trying to protect everyone, and it was Donald who had to talk her down. That was really fun. That was really, really good by them. And then seeing the opposite of that, where it's Della, Louie, and Scrooge, and all of them kind of learning to work together and everything, and just getting to see Della work with Scrooge, fully, right? A very good episode.
Yes. And also, that by the end, we kind of see all the, everyone, like, we see Drake for a bit, we see Fenton too, who are all far away, and they're like, Fowl is actually causing us trouble. We need to stop them. Like, they are a legit threat. They are more of a threat than we thought, and that sets up the next few episodes. Speaking of which, the split sword of, how the hell do you pronounce it?
Swanstanting.
Yes. I like it just for the different group dynamics that we get.
Agreed. Jaya, I think your mic has died on you if you're trying to talk, because we cannot hear you.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Well, I was just thinking about this episode, how it shows Scrooge is his own worst enemy sometimes. Because it turns out they would have been able to creep Bradford out if Scrooge had just done one thing that most people know, which is reset your passwords.
Yes.
It's like, because he's thinking that Bradford is worried about Bradford getting through all the securities. But it turns out to mean nothing, because Bradford's like, I'm not going to risk my life going through a bunch of death traps.
Like, I'm just gonna let you do the job for me and then steal it from you.
Exactly.
This is something actually that, even though I enjoy the group dynamics, I enjoy how each group kind of does its own thing, the ending is like,
well, also the fact that the training didn't work, that Scrooge and Beakley screwed everyone over in their paranoia.
But to be fair, I think the show writers want me to feel that, but At the same time, I don't think it's the kind of ooze they wanted for me. It's kind of
No.
because
It's the
of
fact that Webby actually hurt Huey and traumatized him under Beakley's orders, and Beakley still doesn't get it until Donald calls her out.
Yeah, that was actually that nightmare sequence was kind of fucked up, honestly. Which I usually enjoy these kind of things in a kids show, but this was going too far. This was one step too far.
Agreed.
Wolf, what do you think?
I mean, I kind of said my piece on Escape from the Impossibility, so kind of going back to the split sword of Swansontein, right? I enjoyed I would have enjoyed it a lot if we had, like, because we had another group split in this one as well, with, Dewey and Webby being together, Louie and Violet being together, and Huey and Lena being together, right? And I enjoyed the split between Huey and Lena and Louie and Violet. I wish we could have gotten Dewey and Webby, like, with other people as well, like seeing Webby interact with and Dewey interact with some of the other characters too. But it's not a big deal because we've seen a lot of Dewey and Webby and we know they work together. We've seen Webby with the other two boys, so we know she works well with them as well. So it was fun to see kind of Lena working off of Huey and Violet working off of Louie and seeing the differences between, the four of them and how they do kind of complement each other in a way. Violet complimenting Louie by being, a badass, right? And just being able to, like, take his lies and run with them. And also, realizing that they should have told the truth from the start, and then seeing Lena just the Huey and Lena one was interesting, right? Because it's, we learn a bit more about Huey and that he keeps a side of himself locked away, and that's more of it, and that's his more emotional side, and the fact that he's a lot like Donald, and where he can let his anger take control and get away from him if he's not careful, but he keeps it locked away better than Donald does. And you kind of see Lena pull that out of him and say, hey, it's okay to be emotional and you need to accept all parts of yourself, right? Before you can be and do better. Like, it's that was good. I enjoyed that.
Great. And so, Wolf, I want to let you start on the next episode.
New
which
Gods
is
on
New
the
Gods
Block?
on the Block.
Why am I starting?
Because it has your homeboy in it.
This is true. Starkules is my himbo homeboy.
and
He's a great himbo.
And actually, this is the episode which made me go, dude, read the room.
He tries, bless him. He tries.
He tries, but he doesn't understand. Three's a crowd when a date is involved.
He means well.
Yeah.
He wants the best for Donald, but yeah, he needs to learn how to do space better. He does by the end, but
by the end, after he's released a monster, but
details.
No, this is a pretty big detail. This is
it all worked out in the end. He did a good
job. Sure.
True, it did, but it doesn't really. How do you say? Just because you managed to make lemonade out of a sour lemon doesn't mean that the lemon wasn't a sour melon. I was about to say melon. What the hell is wrong with me? But point stands. Just because it ended up on a good note doesn't mean dude, read the room.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely agreed. Right, but I still enjoyed Starkules in this one, and I enjoyed the back and forth with Daisy and Donald and him, right? And seeing Daisy kind of have to cope with and understand just how crazy the Duck and Mcduck family can be, and whether or not she wants to be involved with that.
Yeah, and then when she comes back, she actually refers to Donald as her boyfriend, and it makes him happy. It's like, aww. And you know something? I think, like, this is the first time we ever saw the two of them kiss, and I'm like, so that's how it works with their beaks. Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm asking the important questions about the Disney lore, people. This is a very important question. But, so, other than that, though, we do get the kids having got, try and replace like the
Zeus.
the gods, Zeus, because Zeus is pissed.
Yep.
Zeus was kicked
Well,
out of
also
being a
they tied
god.
up Zook.
Yeah.
Yep. And so they're trying to find out who can be the king of the gods. And Storkules should be the obvious candidate, given the good son. Given
Yeah.
he's the son, but
You know
as
something? You know something? Kind of a funny thing. People give Disney a lot of shit for how they treated Zeus in the animated Hercules movie. That's like, this is not what Zeus is like, and it's like, you need to understand that this is probably the most true to source representation of Zeus Disney is going to give you, where he's just a dick to his son for some reason.
yeah.
Because
Yeah, this is on the lighter side though of what Zeus does.
Yeah.
Again, this is what I'm saying though.
But true.
Disney.
Yes,
Disney
true.
is going to give you this. In terms of what Disney is going to give you, this is the closest we're gonna get.
Very
So-
true.
Including Hades is a moody guy, but he's
Yeah.
like, I'm noping out of this. I'm not getting involved.
Mhm.
Which, thank you for getting away from that interpretation from James Woods.
Yeah.
Because James Woods is the worst.
Yeah.
I love this. I loved this representation of Hades here. This was fun. It's a very quick. Show. Like he's very quickly mentioned, very quickly gone. But it was still a very good representation of Hades. I love this one.
Yeah, it's just like nope, boom, and we never see him again.
And just laughing at Zeus and the predicament Zeus has got himself in.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So, but overall fun episode. I enjoyed all the kings like taking down the Titan at the end, and kind of showing
Yes.
that they are worthy, but at the same time they do give up the powers. And
Well, it was
Yeah.
also nice to
Indeed.
see Della be the one to Scrooge, you kind of screwed up, dude. You need to let them know that, you do care about them and they are, the best adventuring team you've ever had. Like, tell them that, they think you're trying to replace them as your adventuring team.
Mhm.
That was also like a nice little background plot deal that was going on with Della. Again, trying to be like a good mom to the kids and everything and trying to be there for them and show them like, hey, you are good, you are worthy, you can do this, no matter what anyone else says.
Yes.
That was good. That was very good.
Yeah.
And so moving on to the next episode, the first adventure. First note about this:
Yep.
young Donald is voiced by Christina V, and Christina V is awesome. That's one thing to note. But also, I like the fact that we have like an actual episode showing how Donald and Della just tugging along with Scrooge on his adventures, and kind of showing that he did have like a time where he was kind of retired, and they dragged him back in before the start of the show, and like how this whole thing started. The only thing I'm kind of not really a fan of is that they were like, roll this in this great adventure, and then they're like, oh shit, it doesn't make sense. Like, Bradford just deleted Scrooge's memory of
Yep.
him, like, but just that specific part. Like everything else, fine, but Bradford being evil, nope, this is out.
Yeah, but it also shows that Bradford's always been. How should I put this? He's always been evil from the start.
Yeah.
It may not seem like a biggie, but it feels like one because we've been assuming that Bradford's actual and his Bolger brothers were actually reasonable in season 1, because they accurately point out to Scrooge that his money bin runs at a loss, that Gyro's inventions always turn evil, and that he can't bankrupt himself to save Della.
Yes.
And learning that Bradford was always a rotten apple from the start, that he didn't get corrupted or disillusioned, it sheds a whole new light on his perspective. That there was no
That is
benevolent intention to all of his legitimate points.
Mhm.
And it even gets even worse, but we're not in that episode yet. So it's interesting. And he
Yeah.
actually founded Fowl,
Mhm.
which is
But
that's like, wow.
but one thing I do like, again, showing that Scrooge is indeed smarter than the Smarties, that he and that Bradford kinda wants to fight that Papyrus,
Mhm.
and then Scrooge does and then Scrooge like actually has the idea that I can just wish it away, and only my heir could ever find it.
Yes.
And that is a very clever way out of this, and I mention this because
Yes.
it is coming into play later,
Yes.
as we know.
Just not in the way that Scrooge intended, because his intention was Heron was holding his kids hostage,
Yeah.
and Scrooge basically removes her leverage by saying either Donald or Della is going to find the papyrus.
Mhm.
And you thinking, okay, so that's probably going to happen later.
Mhm.
And it does, just not in the way we expect.
True. Wolf, what are thoughts about this one?
This was, again, like, you kind of already said it all, so the only thing I can say is this was a fun one. It was fun to see young Della and young Donald and their back and forth with, Scrooge back then, right? And seeing just how persistent Della was in going with him, no matter what he did. It was fun.
So
very good.
It was.
And seeing, like, Bradford's history as well and his past and kind of how he got all his start too. Very good.
Yep.
That Donald was still a brooding teenager who was saying makeup.
That was the start of his brooding.
That was really funny. I like that Scrooge gets so tired of him.
Yeah, I think this was like the starting to become broody tween age. This is kind of where he was at that point.
But I also liked how they did show, like, even young Donald, could get angry again, and showed that he did protect his family, and he kept his sister safe when he got angry and everything when he thought something had happened to her, right?
Yes.
Huh?
And I also enjoyed the joke of Scrooge telling Donald, like, you can't bring the guitar with you, and Donald's like, you can't silence me, man, and just you see the limo driving forward and the guitar just thrown out the window into the garbage. That was good.
Yeah.
So moving on to the fight for Castle Mcduck. I will say that this has my favorite joke in the season, maybe even in the show as a whole, where like Dewey is pretending to be knocked out, and when he's attacked by the ghost, and Scrooge just shows up and is like, get away from my favorite nephew, and then Dewey's just like, I am, and both of them and everyone's looking at him, and he's like, again.
Yeah.
I love that part. It's great.
Also, Whiskers comes back,
Yep.
which, like, I have questions because Whiskers was a ball of hair and was explicitly Scrooge's pet, and yet Matilda took Whiskers for hair treatments. Like, if Whiskers was a dog, you'd be seeing a lot of controversy about this, because dogs' hair should not be dyed generally, according to professional. And it's like, I have so many questions about this. Why?
Yeah, actually, this is one of those episodes that I didn't hate it by any means, and again, it has that one joke that really got me. But it's one of those that, like, I didn't feel like anything necessarily progressed here or that I learned anything. It was just an episode for me.
I think the best thing here for me personally was Phantom Blot and Pepper, right? I think that was the thing I enjoyed personally the most, was just seeing kind of Phantom Blot be this lone wolf, like, I don't need you, and Pepper just very slowly and very, very quickly wins him over, like, yeah, you're my best friend now. Like, seeing their kind of budding bromance, if you will, that was fun.
Indeed.
And anything else about this? I don't have much to say on it.
How about the fact that Dingus? It seems that the stinginess and the bad temper runs in the family, as do parents that are never satisfied. Like the fact that Dingus Mcduck is angry that Fergus bought a mansion and made only a bust of him rather than a statue. The fact that Fergus says that Scrooge actually gave the castle to him, bought it back, restored it, put druid stones, and Dingus says, you're munching off your own child? And it's like, well, that seems very familiar.
That it is.
So it's interesting. Interesting, we don't see Hortense, who is... So it's kind of interesting that she's left out of all this. and we don't know, she's probably dead or passed on, but it's also like, this would have been interesting, though, to see Donald's mother and Della's mother in the middle of all this.
Yeah, and this was actually nice to see exactly who she is, because we never really saw Della in any version, so why not see this?
Indeed. Maybe Darkwing spinoff, give us all the episodes that we wanted in this one.
We'll see. Why would Duckwing go to Castle Mcduck? I don't know, but we shall see. Anyway,
I mean, Launchpad did pose as Donald, so it's not completely out of left field.
True. So moving on to How Santa Stole Christmas. This was a weird one.
Weird,
This was
but
a weird,
fun.
like, don't get me wrong, it's fun, but like, again, talking about how old exactly is Scrooge? it's like,
we don't ask that
Scrooge-
question anymore.
I guess not, but again, it's like, so Scrooge knew Santa. They had a
Yep.
deal. They had the falling out, and now they have to kind of do their old shtick again. And at some point, I kind of like it, but at the same time, something felt very off about it. About like just trying to paint Santa as an old Scrooge enemy, but not really. I don't know.
It's that Scrooge was actually the real villain of their feud. Like, you assume Santa did something terrible, because Scrooge keeps saying, that man knows what he did.
Yeah.
And then we find out it's because Santa wanted to be generous and give people gifts, and we're like, Scrooge! It's like, every other of Scrooge's sworn enemies, there is a reason for them. Like, the Neverest guy, he tried killing Scrooge during their expedition. Rocker Duck, basically old feud involving claiming land and exploiting people. Magica, we'll find out later. Glomgold,
Oh,
Scrooge cheated him inadvertently.
yeah.
But this one, it's like, Scrooge, what the heck, man?
But I will say that the ending is sweet, and it is a good Christmas episode, even though it aired a month before. But still, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Wolf, what
it's
do you
fun.
think?
It's very fun. It's very sweet, right? It's nice to see kind of, how much Santa cares about Scrooge and just wants to spend time with his old friend, right? And so he kind of comes up with this little bit of a scheme to say, "Hey, I need help delivering the presents," even though he didn't, because he wanted to spend time with Scrooge again, his best friend, and the person who
Indeed.
helped him get his entire start. Because
Yeah.
it killed Santa
Indeed.
to have to choose between giving, the holiday spirit and the idea of giving away stuff and his best friend. Like, that killed him, that hurt him a lot, but he did it because he thought it was the best choice. And
Yep.
again, it was very sweet. Very sweet episode. Very good. Not anything that, really continues the story or does anything in particularly amazing wise, compared to other episodes, but again, very sweet, very good, very fun.
Yep. With that said, Bix in the Shell.
Yep.
I will say I'm glad. I kind of like it that they make it clear that this is going to be the last episode where Bix is the main villain.
Yep.
He's just like, well, I'm gonna try it one more time. What's gonna happen? Then
No, I'll
I
give
like
them.
how in the-
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then it ends with basically all Huey, Fenton, Gandra, and Fenton's mother, and I think Jaya too, basically just going Power Rangers on him and combine their forces to basically kick him out and end him totally, and that's it. Like, if he had to go out, he went out with a good episode. I'll give him that.
Yes, and one that's kind of self-referential about him
Yeah.
is there's a huge reality check to when you're a Silicon Valley scammer, even though Silicon Valley doesn't exist in the Duckburg universe, because you're going to lose your reputation, your cred, and your investors.
Yes.
In fact, and he eventually did have to put out a product, the Waddle phone, but everyone knows that despite the fact they bought it, they're all exploding.
Yeah.
And that one journalist asked, "Why are you still a deal?" So it's kind of nice to see that finally the reality check hit him. Because we've been waiting for this for how many seasons now?
3.
Many episodes though. But yeah, like this was actually, I'll give them credit, one of the few Beaks episodes that I enjoyed having Beaks in, because this is him getting a lot of his comeuppance. This is him kind of paying for everything that he's done in the past, right? And finally
So again,
getting
kind of, if he at least he went out with a good episode.
Yeah, I'll agree.
But there is a funny moment in this episode that it doesn't have anything to do with Beaks, but there's like a point where like Huey discovers Fenton and Gandra's their program, the Gizmo Cloud, and he's trying to keep it a secret. So there's a point where he has Louis dress as him and like trick Fenton's mother, if I remember, and then Huey's like, yes, of course. And Louis like, yes, of course, Fenton is Gizmoduck. And then he's just mad at Huey. It's like, don't you think you could have filled me in on that? Don't you think you could have told me a bit more just so that I'll actually sell it? I enjoyed that part. It was great.
I also enjoyed how they brought back, Louis, what was it? Louis for Kids, or Kids for Louis, or something like that. Louis' charity deal where he gives to himself because he's a kid, and she brings up like, I could arrest you for that, and like she actually scares him to death and beats Louis at his own game.
Yeah.
Don't mess with Fenton's mom.
Nope, indeed not.
So yeah, it's a fun episode. I like it.
Yes. It's interesting because Gandra's kind of been flip-flopping. She's obviously not wanting to be a villain, but she still did cause harm. But Fenton convinces her to switch sides, and Jaya's perfectly willing to hire her.
Yes.
People did question why she didn't tell Fenton any of the foul secrets while they were meeting up in the virtual world, but there's probably a reason for that. But it turns out Bradford found out anyway about her dissection and the cloud. Because Huey messed with the controls, at least that's what the episode implied. And he summons Bradford to Gizmo World, to the Gizmo Cloud. And so it's implied that Bradford figured it out. Yeah, and this not really leads us, but we do need to talk about it to the next episode, The Last Cargo of Kid Cloudkicker. Which, what a weird place in the show to just do a Tailspin episode. Which, yes,
don't get me wrong, nice reference, and I'm sure fans of the show, I personally never saw it, but fans of the show probably got a kick out of it. But it's like, we are 3 episodes before the finale, and it's like, what is this doing here? And power? I guess.
I kind of love how, this kind of gets mentioned a little bit in the finale, that the Ducktales universe is the thing that created all of these other universes, right? Like the Ducktales, like Scrooge McDuck and his adventures is the thing that created, Tailspin and Rescue Rangers. Like those things exist because of those things exist because of all the adventures and stuff that goes on in Ducktales. I kind of love that idea. And I kind of love that they do show that. It's a little weird to have this, reference here of all places, but I think it works. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's fun, and I like Dewey and Dan Carnage's, rivalry. But at the same time, I don't have much to say about this one. It's fun. It's a good reference. I'm sure fans of Tailspin got a kick out of it. And that's it, basically. The next episode, though...
They killed poor Baloo.
Well, he's not dead, necessarily. He just can't appear for copyright reasons. Phil Harris's widow is very litigious.
Yeah, probably.
They retired him at the very least. Poor Baloo, he had to retire. He got too old.
Well... the Jungle Book remake made $1 billion. I'm not worried about him. He's fine. But anyway...
One other thing I need to mention before we move on. I forgot to mention it. Beaks in the Shell. I see you Ghost in the Shell reference with your name there. Oh. I have to get the anime reference in.
I never thought about that. That's cool. Anyway,
Moving on.
the life and crimes of Scrooge McDuck. I know Jaya has something to say about this episode.
Oh, a lot. But the first would be
Mm-hmm.
That's.
I'm just gonna say it. It's nice that before the finale we actually get some closure about Scrooge's past with all of the all of his enemies we saw before, like like Glumgold and Magica. But it's like, what the Magica backstory was so you could have told
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's like, why is this here? Because it feels like we could have done a lot more with it, and it doesn't really play into anything. It's just backstory for the sake of a backstory, and it's like, okay.
To an extent, because this does set up some stuff in the series finale, which is the episode after this.
True, but
we'll get to that. But in the meantime, for those who don't know, this episode is about Scrooge trying to teach Louis about responsibility again with not tribbles. And Louis even points out, you're expecting me to learn this when you basically force this on me? But suddenly a bunch of Anubis dogs summon Scrooge for a trial in a mystical court, where it turns out Doofus has brought Scrooge's enemies gallery to come and press charges against him for ruining their lives and making them villains. And much to Scrooge's surprise and dismay, Louis has to be his defense lawyer. So it's a flashback episode with flashbacks we haven't seen before, explaining why all these villains, Glomgold, Bob Eagle, and Magica, have a grudge against Scrooge.
And you see, right, that Louis, being kind of a con man himself, does come into play and helps out quite well, because Louis is able to see through the con of Glomgold and the con of Mob Eagle especially, and kind of point them out and say, like, Scrooge didn't make them evil. They were already evil. Scrooge didn't ruin their lives. They already did that to themselves, right? They made it worse on themselves by their own actions. But then they get to Magica, and Louis literally can't do anything about that, because Scrooge was the villain in that regard. He could have helped Magica save her brother, and he just didn't. He cared more about...
Yeah.
And it shows, that Scrooge isn't and hasn't always been a good person. Like, he is kind of, he has had to learn how to be a good person, and the triplets have also helped teach him that, right?
Indeed. It's not just the triplets, but it's the fact that taking Indomitable and Della seem to mellow him. When his family is basically his tether for morality. And so it's kind of foreshadowed that Fergus used the dime to encourage him to make his fortune, but that meant Scrooge pretty much left forever. So, but it's interesting because Magica's situation is great in that her brother Poe, who was in the original series as a talking crow, was a bit grayer than usual, because on the one hand, Poe was definitely evil. He's perfectly fine with turning villagers that owe them tribute into animals as long as they can produce something practical, like eggs or milk in this case, because Magica turns them into goats. But he also realizes that Scrooge isn't a threat when they try stealing his dime, and you can immediately tell that's when Scrooge hated Magica forever, because no one takes the dime.
No, the dime is the end-all be-all. You mess with it, that's it.
Yes.
You're done.
Yeah, very, very done. But Scrooge basically goads Magica, even though Poe realizes that this guy isn't a threat as long as you don't anger him. But Scrooge goads Magica into taking Poe's amulet and trying to turn him into animals. But the moment that really hurts is Magica tries turning Scrooge into a raven, but he deflects the blow with his dime. And Poe jumps in the way just by instinct. A lot of people noted it was really stupid of Poe to do this because he was the one who could turn people back. And he's turned into a non-sapient raven. And Magica
I guess he was just, acting on impulse. Yeah.
Because Magica's his sister.
Yeah.
And it just hurts a lot. Because the last thing Magica says to him is she doesn't need him. And then she just stops dead cold and begs him to change back. And this is the only time she's truly said, "I'm sorry." It's like, wow.
Yeah.
And obviously,
again, this is a good backstory, and it's also good to show that again Scrooge is not always the de facto good guy, but again it's like, where did it? I feel like we needed more of this. Like this was planned to be
Yes.
something bigger.
I
It
agree
was
with
so
you.
mad because you're putting this that Poe was somewhere out there in the world as a raven. And no, I don't believe that he died due to old age, because you can't just drop this on us and then not follow up on it, because
Go ahead.
Also, dying of old age, I give you Scrooge McDuck. This argument is not valid.
indeed. And Magica, she's been a witch for 100 years, for 130 years, so that's also not legit. Poe is probably alive somewhere. But the other thing that makes Louis realize he can't defend this one is finding out that Scrooge didn't save the transformed villagers. Instead, he created a goat farm, and he sold
Yes.
their milk. And Louis like, but did you give the profits to the survivors? And Scrooge has to admit, no, I kept it for myself.
So speaking of which,
I will say right on the. Oh, go ahead, HC.
no, I was just gonna transition us to the final episode.
Well, before we transition, right, I will say right that I loved how Louis went up and apologized to Doofus and made amends, and that's all Doofus wanted, and he was done with it at that point. I also love that, and I will say right, I agree with you. I would have loved. This is one of those few times where I would say like it would have been nice to have gotten another season to have seen more of this particular arc with Magica, and maybe see a Magica who finds her brother again, or just see what they decide to do with that and where they go with it.
Right.
I will say that again. I think they gave us this at the very least because they knew by this point more than likely that they weren't getting another season, and they wanted to do something with Magica to kind of give the audience something with her and why she hated Scrooge and a bit more about her. So they gave us this. It just would have been nice to have seen more with it. I do agree. And it's a shame that we probably won't get that now.
It's all up to the Darkwing spinoff, because in the Darkwing comics, at least, Magica shows up as a villain.
Yeah, so maybe. But yeah. But that leads us to the last adventure, final episode.
A 3 parts. Yes, it drops a lot of bombs on us, and you can tell they wanted this to be Huey's season, and season 4 would presumably be focusing on Webby, because she's basically an honorary triplet. Donald considers her as such.
Actually, let's talk about Webby first. That, they gonna drop this thing on us, which she has 2 clones called May and June. And I get that this is supposed to be a reference to the Daisy's Nieces comic, which I actually read a few things about. I know what it is. But if you take that reference aside, if you don't know that reference, if you don't know this was a thing, the relationship between Webby and them feels very uncharacteristic of Webby to just trust them immediately and just go along with them.
So, I didn't know about the Daisy, Nieces comic.
Yeah.
And I will say I didn't think it was too I didn't think it was too
You see, you're wrong. You don't know what you're saying.
True. I didn't think it was too uncharacteristic of Webby because it felt like that was Webby's optimism at trying to see the best in everyone and everything shining through again. Even though she probably should know better that May and June probably aren't trustworthy, that there's probably something they're hiding too, it still shines through. I think it makes some sense.
Some, but not a lot, because the issue is she already went through this before.
This is true.
With Lena. And the girls are no Lena, who was basically forced by Magica to spy on Webby and eventually turned on her. And even Huey says at one point he saw them stealing the missing mysteries, and Webby's like, maybe they just like sharp objects.
Yeah.
He goes, come on, these girls are evil. And it's a little more complicated than that, but eventually, it does feel very uncharacteristic of Webby. And at least she only really seems to get back at it when she takes advantage of May and June kidnapping her to grab one of them, switch clothes, and then lock up one in the vault while posing as June.
Yeah.
But after that, it's like,
And that plot point, and I mentioned this because again, because this last episode is technically a 3-parter. I think if you had maybe even one more part, it could have worked out. But as
yeah.
is, it feels like it's going by way too fast.
Yeah. Just to mention to people, this episode is an hour long. So yeah, it's definitely a lot in this episode.
There's a lot.
And since we already talked about Webby, I kind of like the idea that in this version she's basically a clone of Scrooge. I like that idea, and that they use that in order so that Bradford could find the papyrus. I like that idea because it also kind of gives a whole new dimension to the rest of the show. Like in the first season where Scrooge yells at her, "You're not a part. It's a family matter. You're not a part of the family."
Oof,
and
that hits hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bigly like calls him out of it, knowing the truth that she is a clone. That it does make the show stronger in hindsight, but at the same time, it also kind of starts bringing up the questions of, did Bickley ever think about actually telling Scrooge or Webby about this? How long did if Fallon was kept in the shadows for so long, why did he only use that information? Now, there are some questions that suddenly pop up by this, and I think I told Jaya that this twist kind of both makes the show stronger, but also snaps it like a twig.
It's a bit of both, because on the one hand, a lot of DuckTales is about found family. Because Scrooge, it's not Scrooge being related to the triplets that makes their bond stronger to the Donald. It's the fact that everyone works to fix their relationship and to roll with the punches. Of course, Webby's always been, and I guess on a meta sense, because Webby was seen as the tag-along kid in the original series due to the fact that she was literally a toddler, and the fact that you know how boys are at that age. You don't want to hang out with girls. And basically, it feels like they wanted to have this arc, and it makes sense. Like you can tell they were planning it from the beginning. Like Webby saying that that Beakley's kept her in the mansion all her life, and has not really let her out unless she's with Scrooge. And suddenly you're like, oh, suddenly makes a lot more sense right now.
Yeah.
Though it also begs the question: Bradford knew who Webby was the whole time. He implies it from the way he treats her. And yet, she was visiting the money bin regularly, and the doofus could not ask Webby politely to help him with an adventure. He had this whole opportunity, and it's like, Bradford, you're supposed to be the manipulative, smart guy. What the heck, man?
Again, this is something that we needed. Maybe it's obviously something that they didn't have really planned from the start. They thought it's along, but they didn't do a good job fixing it, because, like you said, Bradford had tons of opportunities to do this. So, was he just waiting for the right moment? Question mark.
And related to this, because remember how Della somehow found out about the Spear of Selene?
Yeah.
And decided to go on an impulse trip against Donald and Scrooge's wishes? Bradford reveals he told Della about it, and you're like, but we're gonna retire anyway.
Yeah, this part actually.
It hurts.
Again, with the entire, this was supposed to be Huey's season. Like when they show out that Bradford was like the son of the chick who made the Junior Woodchuck guidebook. Yeah, and like that they are both Junior Woodchucks, and it's like you could have had something there with Huey because he relies on that book so damn much. And you can tell it's his guide for life, and it's like you have it right there. You could have done something with this, but again, we probably said this before. It feels like they combined like Huey's end arc with Webby's, and again, one more season could have fixed that. One more.
One more.
Do we know why Disney decided to cancel it, or did it just cancel it? And that's
it? Nope.
No,
Really?
it's it's done. That's it.
Maybe it's just after an episode limit they would have to raise the rates on paying the voice actors, which is usually why most seasons from Cartoon Network have a 52 episode limit, and if they continue the show, it's under a new title. I don't think so. They basically pulled a Wander on us, which
Good old Disney.
good old Disney.
Old Disney, yes. Good depends on who you ask.
Though there are a lot of funny moments to go in this. Like at one point, Darkwing and Fenton are locked in a cell together, and Fenton's been forced out of the Gizmo Duck outfit, and Darkwing goes just like Gizmo Duck to run away from battle, and Fenton gets so mad that he starts to shout who he is.
Yeah, I love this. And also, then after Launchpad puts the armor on, Darkwing tells Gosling, who would have thought Launchpad was Gizmo Duck the entire time? And Gosling's like, yep.
I love how.
So also,
I love how also he tells Fenton, I can't believe Gizmo Duck sent you as intern in his place. I'm like, God, you're such a dum-dum, but I love you.
Though.
Also, can we talk about the greatest twist in the history of television? Where with Manny, who suddenly starts talking with Keith David's voice, and then like out of nowhere he turns into a gargoyle from Gargoyles.
Yes, it's implied he's this version's universe of Goliath, so like, I have so many questions.
But I loved it though.
I love it too. Like Jaya can testify. I was going, no way when this happened.
I was happily screaming.
Yeah, and like we were just like, but then again, you stop and think about it. What was Goliath doing in Scrooge McDuck's garage at the start of the show?
There are a few options, given he's the man horse that will cause the apocalypse. So it's possible Scrooge may have stopped the apocalypse once or twice.
As you do. But
yes.
But I love this that he just
people change, yo.
He just got Goliath
yep.
Also the other part I like is that so Bradford and Scrooge do have a one-on-one, which I enjoy. This is all like if you're gonna end the show, you gotta have Scrooge fight one-on-one with someone. And again,
yes.
So Bradford uses a sword. Scrooge uses his cane. Noise.
We never mentioned it. I see you show talking about his cane. I see you show using the trick from the Ducktales game, bouncing on people's head.
The pogo stick. Yeah, the pogo stick.
That was good. Right. I enjoyed that. A nice little touch. I also a joke that I really loved from this episode, and again, it just goes to show like this episode has its problems, but they still do quite well with it, all considering.
Yeah, it's still a great finale. It's just.
It could have been better,
I think it could have been much better.
It could have been. This finale could have been had the bar on it raised quite a bit if we would have gotten that 4th season. At the very least, one more season to just kind of finish up the few loose ends and just kind of tie things together with a nicer bow, if you will.
Yeah.
But I still, one joke I did love from this that especially got me was the Shush director's still alive, and Gyro even asked him, like, wait, you were ancient in the 60s. How are you still alive? And he's like, well, I got trapped here and everything else I was doing. I just kind of forgot to age and die. Like, that's an explanation now.
It's on point for Ludwig von Drake.
Yeah, that's actually him. Good on them for bringing back another classic character. But on that note, so we get to the top of this building, and Bradford is about to basically banish Donald to it kind of just was it just
erase him.
Evaporate?
It erased him out of his existence is what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, he does that. And
one
of the most
it throws Donald in, and then Donald has such bad luck that it destroys the machine from the inside.
It
That-
destroys the machine from the inside, thanks to Gyro and Gandriji shutting it down, but he got all the impact on the fall, just smashes it up. But in one of the shocking moments, it's revealed that Bradford's brothers were actually his clones. And Bradford just callously tosses them in. Even Scrooge is horrified, because and then he tosses it into Karen, which ends up being a mistake, because she raised May and June. And they call out for her, alarmed, and it makes them realize that they're not on the side of good, which Webby uses to convince them to free everyone, rather than kick them in the face, which he was in a perfect position to. So it's both his mistake, but it's also shocking, because we all knew the Vultures as a trio, and learning that Bradford casually disposes of his clones implies he's done it before, which has a lot of unsettling implications.
I mean, I also love how, you know, he pushes Heron, and even Heron's like, "Oh, Bradford, you truly are evil." And, like, you know, even she acknowledges, like, you know, his villain side right there at the final end.
She's
like,
proud of him.
Yeah. And but can we talk about the Papayas now, or do you want to?
Sure.
So Bradford uses Webby to find the Papayas because she is Scrooge's heir, and he tells Scrooge, like, you should, if you like, you signed that contract, and like, I'll let your family live as long as you stop adventuring, you stop with the adventures, you stop with all this. And Scrooge does sign it, and then Huey comes up with this thing that, you know, the only way to stop the Papayas contract is if you find a loophole in the contract, and the loophole is such a cheesy kind of loophole that kind of comes out of nowhere, but at the same time, it's kind of the only loophole this show can come up with and get away with that kind of fits the theme of the whole thing, which is Scrooge can't stop adventuring with his family because family is the greatest adventure of all, and that actually works.
Yes, and even Launchpad.
If I may quote Cinema Sins for a bit, this works. Ding.
Yes, and they even say "ding" when they realize it.
Yeah.
But and even Bradford says this is really stupid.
But
it works.
Yeah, like it works for this show. You don't feel like it's, you know, some shows would pull something like this out and you'd have people very much going after it as kind of, you know, forgive my language, but an asshole, right? Like, people would go after it for that. But it works for DuckTales because that's DuckTales. Like, that's what you would expect from it. That's exactly what you would want from it. It's kind of this, you know, cheesy but also very sweet thing that kind of saves the day because it's fun.
Although, you know, I would love to see the recording session of Danny Pudi recording that line, and you know, doing several takes of it. I give us that, please. I would love to see that.
Indeed, I would like to see it too.
And then, you know, with Fowl defeated, like, Bradford turns into a legit eagle. Like he's not anthropomorphic or anything. He's just
Vulture.
An eagle now.
Vulture.
Yeah.
Well, a buzzard.
Buzzard.
Because remember that Magica kept her powers.
Yeah.
And that Scrooge also apologized to her for what he did to Poe. This actually pays off because Fowl made the mistake of capturing all of the major villains and turning them into brainwashed lackeys. And when Magica snaps out of it, she's angry. And she's like, Scrooge is not much of a threat as this guy. And so she corners Bradford, turns him into a buzzard, and he becomes her new pet. And she leaves Scrooge without further fuss, and the family even waves to her kind of happily.
Yeah, this is another thing that's like, I guess we're cool with Magica now. Well, okay.
Well, or at the very least, it's gonna go from a year-long grudge to more of a friendly enemy thing, which I'm hoping. Again, if we had gotten another season, I would have loved to see that. Alas, we cannot have everything we want.
I guess, but some quick things are wrapped up before the credits. Like, you know, Donald actually suggests to Daisy that they should adopt May and June.
Well, at least take them on their trip with them, which was sweet.
On the cruise.
Which was very sweet.
Yes. Right. Also, Donald's going on a cruise with Daisy for a few months because he wants a
Yeah.
proper vacation and not one where he's sent to the moon. And Della tries
Yes.
protesting about this, but she eventually acknowledges that this is very hypocritical of her because he's not the one that left the kids for 10 years for a
Which-
joyride, and he says it's not going to be forever. It's just a month.
Which also
And
makes you kind of want a fourth season, because then you get to see Della around even more and Donald around even less, and what the dynamic would be
Yeah.
like with just Della and all that. It's like, ugh,
right.
damn you, Disney.
Or even a sibling bonding episode. I would have wanted a Donald and Webby episode. That would have been
Yeah.
because he considers her as one of his kids, and yet we never got that. It's like, ah.
But I will say though that in terms of like ending on a good note, I enjoyed the credits for this episode.
Yes,
Like,
because
you can't-
Launchpad accidentally launches everyone out of the Sun Chaser, and it shows how they're all getting out of this one.
Yeah. So I like that. Like you see Boyd saving Gyro, and
And Manny goes for Donald and Della, with Donald clinging to his tail, because of course.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff, really, truly. just so much. Again, it's a very packed season finale, to say the least. Like, extremely packed.
It is. And I know that HC and I are nitpicking because it was a good episode and a good series finale. It just wasn't building up to the whole.
Oh, you're fine.
Just want to say, I'm not sure if I was cutting the recording for this, but when they in the credit sequence, when they fall, Disney again, you put us in there. When Darkwing is up there, Gasoline and Launchpad help him glide to safety. You put this in there. You cannot make the Disney Plus show not canonical to this.
You have to.
You have to do this.
Darkwing with no Gosalyn is no Darkwing.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, also Gosalyn holds her own weight in this episode. She's actually a very good fighter for someone with no powers, so thank you for that.
And continuing with the thing, there's kind of a small thing that, the final group that we see following is like obviously the nephews Webby and Scrooge, but I like that Dewey and Louie are kind of afraid of the fall, like when they find each other they're relieved, and Dewey's just like, whatever, man, I'm gonna do a Michael Jackson thing and enjoy myself if I'm falling down to my death. It's like, okay.
Yeah. But of course, Scrooge grabs the kids and they assume a skydiving position, so you all know it's probably going to end like how Iron Man saved the people of Air Force One.
Yeah.
So, we know we're going to be fine at this point.
And but yeah, this was Ducktales 2017. Overall, a really great show. I really like it, and I think the two co-hosts with me also really like it. We just spent overall all the episodes together like 4 hours or something talking about this show.
Actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close to.
Even better. And so I think one of those reboots that, if you ever gonna reboot something again, like any kind of show, use this as your blueprint to how you do it.
Have a great dose of love for the source material. Be nice to your fans. And don't be afraid to exchange in good-hearted meta commentary about your predecessors.
Well, yeah, also, right, like, this reboot, right, like, it knows, right, it very much knew from the very beginning, like, it's going to have old fans coming into this, but they also wanted to make something for a new generation of kids to have their DuckTales, and I think they do just that. They honor the old stuff. They have stuff there for those old fans to come back to and see and go, hey, that thing, that's awesome, they did that thing. And those old fans can, turn to their kids, because that's what a lot of that's going to happen right now. It's going to be parents showing, like, their kids this DuckTales thing. Like, hey, let's watch this DuckTales thing together because I grew up with DuckTales. So I want to watch it with you. And they said, hey, here's something for you parents who grew up with DuckTales to turn to your kids and then say, here's the thing that I remember back then. Let me explain it to you. Let me talk to you about it. Let me have that fun with you about that. And this show gives you that. And this show kind of just says, hey, old DuckTales was at its most basic essence about being fun. And let's, take that and run with it. And this was fun. I wish we could have gotten a fourth season at the very least out of it. I think it was needed to some degree, but I think with the 3 seasons we got, they gave us a DuckTales that was absolutely worth watching and absolutely worth the reboot.
World. So, with that said, thank you for tuning into this trilogy of DuckTales episode. We hope you enjoyed. Did you enjoy the DuckTales reboot? What are your favorite episodes? You can tell us all about that in the comment section below. On our Twitter, which is Berkcast with a capital B, capital C, and our Tumblr, which is Berkcast Team. Jaya, where can people find you?
You can find me on my Medium account. I've been writing recaps based on our podcasts. And you can also find me at my website, priyajshreedhar.com. And that is where I post blogs about my books. Woohoo!
Woohoo indeed. So with that said, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
I was Jaya.
And we will see you all next time. Take care. DuckTales. Woohoo.
Bye-bye.